Sorry ass DJ.
So I was watching Sunny Justice last night, and she was talking about a few things that I found interesting. So let's listen in, and then I'm gonna insert a couple clips that I think explain the things that she's questioning and give kind of like my opinion on the whole thing. And then I'll check in with you guys every once in a while throughout. Okay? So let's get into it.
To me, this whole Odinism, I don't, where do you start with this Odinism thing? That it's still a bunch of fabrication that they found to twist the narrative because of, and they're just trying to
100%.
I mean, I still feel.
I think that every name that was listed, I think that 100 and however many pages of that memorandum, I still maintain that they were pure fiction. They were a snippet of this 6-year-long investigation that the defense decided to propagate for the public. That document was written for the public, even though it was not supposed to be distributed to the public. The very first line of it is, for those not familiar with the case. But I mean, Patrick Westphal, Brad Holder. I mean, it's a fantastical story. It's just not true. Like, those aren't runes on those girls, or runes. However, I've been corrected for mispronouncing it.
Well, that's what I was just going to talk about as well. So this picture is Rick Snae's interpretation, like this is his or whatever, for these sticks. So now one of the things that he was going on about, and this is what I would like to ask you guys in chat. So how many of you guys in chat think that the shapes that are on here are runes? Now, Rick Snae on the Drunk Turkey show believe that, and I'm sure some others believe that these are meant to be runes. To me, you don't think that there's an Odinist out there that would know how to confirm that these were runes and then say what they meant if they were? Why haven't we heard that if these are so-called runes?
My name is Attorney Mark Lopez, and allow me to bring you up to speed on recent developments in the Delphi case. On September 18th, 2023, the attorneys for Richard Allen filed a 136-page brief that had all sorts of allegations in it. One of the more interesting allegations was that the scene of the crime involved pagan ruins. One of the original investigators sought out and spoke to a professor at Purdue University about this Odin cult connection. Now, a new professor in the 919 interview says they do appear to be connected and that it's a given someone was trying to replicate Germanic ruins. So who is this professor? His name is Jeffrey Turco, and from what I can see online, he is an expert on Nordic literature, folklore, Germanic literature and folklore. He has a pretty impressive resume with books and articles and interviews and whatnot. Now, whatever you might think of a degree in folklore and mythology, I can tell you right now that based on his PhD, publications, and titles, Dr. Turco qualifies as an expert under the Indiana Rules of Evidence. Now, Doctor can't say whether or not Richard Allen did or did not do it, but he can say whether or not he believes that a pagan death cult may or may not be implicated in these murders, so long as his opinions are based on his knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education, which clearly he has plenty of. Now, the investigator who interviewed the Purdue professor acknowledged in the interview they knew the identity of the professor for 3 to 4 weeks prior to the interview, which means the email by the prosecutor to the defense team on September 6th was either a lie, purposefully misleading, or the prosecutor does not know what's going on with the investigation. As a criminal defense attorney, all three possibilities are equally terrifying. I'm not going to lie. This looks terrible for the prosecutors and the investigation. It looks like they're hiding the ball. This whole incident appears to be objective evidence that prosecutors and investigators are not playing fair. And that's not fair to Richard Allen, and more importantly, that's not fair to the families of the victims. I want to remind the prosecutors in this case, a prosecutor's job is not to win cases. It's to obtain justice. And hiding evidence is not justice. I, for one, have a little bit less faith in the justice system after reading Richard Allen's attorney's brief. And I encourage everyone watching and following along to always question people in power.
So please go to Mark Lopez's channel. It's really good. He does a little bit of content on Delphi, and he explains stuff super well, and he's local in Indiana. So I will link him below, and honestly, I love how he explains stuff, so you might want to go over there and take a watch.
Yeah. Okay, 3. Who dis is 3? What is that? Unsure who dis? 3 if you don't know enough about runes to answer. You know. So Adam, you just said that you don't believe that they're anything to do with runes yourself, correct?
Absolutely not. I don't.
I don't either. Do I believe that there was a misdirect going on?
Possibly.
Yes, I believe that there was a misdirection going on. I don't believe personally in the whole Odinism angle. I just, again, I think CD mentioned above about the patches and stuff like that. But mind you, Andrew Best had already been on here saying that, yeah, you know, that those would be, if they could wear their patches. So if I'm not mistaken, and I'm trying to remember, guys, but in those 2 affidavits from those 2, what do you want to call them? Guards, officers, or whatever, that were watching Richard Allen. Didn't they say that, was it pagan heathenry, but it wasn't nothing to do with Odinism?
Right. And I'm no expert in either of those things. And you know, from the research I did into men, like one of them, I mean, if you're linking, you know, like the Odinists or the Odinites with you know, white supremacy, like a lot of people do. I mean, one of those guards he had a Black Lives Matter symbol on his Facebook. I'm like, in my experience in life, you know, most white supremacists aren't out there supporting Black Lives Matter. But again, I don't believe that the Odinite angle is valid. So I guess we'll see.
The professor I spoke with tells me that Odinism is a pagan-based religion where the followers worship many gods.
For Odinists, this is sort of the religion of their blood.
Dr. Jefferson Calico teaches at University of the Cumberlands in Kentucky. He tells me Odinism is a
racially based form of heathenry or Germanic paganism. These are people who see it as like a white man's religion, you know, a racist form of religion.
It's followers of that religion that Richard Allen's attorneys say killed Abby Williams and Libby German in the woods in Delphi, ritualistically sacrificing them, moving and positioning their bodies, and placing sticks on them in the form of pagan symbols.
Ancient Norse religion, there have been, some of the ancient sources mention human sacrifice.
Dr. Calico says modern-day people wanting to bring back that old way of doing things would be called Reconstructionists.
Every Reconstructionist I've talked to has been pretty explicit in rejecting human sacrifice as something just not appropriate for contemporary people.
He did not completely rule out the possibility of Odinists partaking in ritual human sacrifice because, as he put it,
there are crazy people everywhere.
Richard Allen's childs. Dr. Jefferson Calico tells me that modern-day Odinists have been linked to violence, mainly in prisons and against minority groups or people who practice other religions.
I do want to mention one thing that Anna has said this, and Anna says, a channel today showed the original version of the F tree. The one we saw last week was enhanced. The real version is more dotted like the B, McDonald's sketch. I screenshot both examples. And Anna, I believe you. I believe that's correct. The picture, from my understanding, was edited not to change the picture, but to show the F more clearly. If you wanted to see it, and the way that I believe it was done was that the picture was taken at night, and it was altered to remove the glare that the flash caused when the picture was taken. And so in the edited version that came out, it looks, more like an F, but in the original version, it does look more dotted.
Dotted.
Is my understanding from what I've been told. And again, everyone can think what they want. It's like if you think that this could be, Odinized, and you think Elvis might have something to do with this, and I mean, like I said, I will. You might, if you're right, then that's. You have every right to think that, and I will, admit I'm wrong if I'm shown evidence that I'm wrong. But I don't think that any of those guys had anything to do with those girls' deaths. And if I were any one of those guys, and I could afford an attorney to sue them, I would.
I don't even know what to say. It's turned into a shrine. Delphi.
And I keep saying that. I'm like, I mean, do you know how many times people, I hear people talk about this case, and there's not even a mention of Libby and Abby. I'm like, at what point did this go from being about these girls to being about, I mean, I see more people literally every day on social media and YouTube fighting for the rights of someone that they're, very well maybe their killer, rather than justice for those little girls.
That the true crime community is inherently unfair, that they are after defendants, that they are a witch hunt, that they are eager to see this person convicted, and everybody is just attacking. And I don't actually think that's true. And I think this is maybe the perfect example of that, because everybody was assuming Richard Allen must have done it because, hey, he's been charged, right? Prosecution says he did it. And suddenly you get this brief and you have people saying, well, wait a minute, I want to know more. I want you to prove that he did it. And that's exactly what I think should be happening. That's how the legal system ought to work.
Lee, that is like balm on my jaded true crime heart. I love that so much.
Well, good. Well, good.
Or for their families who very well could potentially stumble across these crime scene photos that have now been publicly put out. And again, and I said it in my video on, was it 2 weeks ago, but if anyone thinks that it's not outside the realm of possibility that this defense team gets removed from this case, I'm not saying that I know they will. But I've said for 2 weeks that the actions I've seen from them absolutely warrant them being removed from this case. And I wouldn't be surprised if come Thursday we find out they're no longer on this case, which sadly is going to delay justice for these girls and their families even more. And it also isn't good for Richard Allen, because he deserves he deserves fair representation. Guilty or not, he deserves fair representation. And, this is going to delay this case by however much longer. For new attorneys to be appointed. And it really is an injustice for him as well.
That investigators lied and tried to hide information. Our Emily Longnecker spent tonight poring over these new documents, taking them to a legal expert to help us break it down. Emily?
Well, Scott, Richard Allen's defense lawyers say Allen didn't kill Abby Williams and Libby German, but people practicing the pagan religion of Odinism did. And then investigators not only brushed aside crime scene evidence supporting that theory, but also tried to hide it.
At the end of the day, the prosecutor's role is to seek the truth and seek justice.
Defense attorney and former Marion County prosecutor Katie Jackson Lindsay has one word for claims from Richard Allen's defense lawyers that investigators withheld and hid evidence that could prove Allen's innocence.
The best word I can keep coming up with is disturbing.
Allen's attorneys claim police ignored crime scene evidence that the teens were killed in a ritualistic sacrifice after consulting a Purdue professor who told them there was no evidence to support that. In court documents filed today, Allen's attorneys say in a recent interview that same professor contradicted what investigators told the defense just last month. According to the defense, the professor told investigators, quote, after viewing the pattern of sticks on the girls, that it was a given that someone was trying to replicate a Germanic rune script, possibly associated with Odinism. That analysis, say Allen's lawyers, was backed up by a Harvard expert. Allen's attorneys claim investigators knew the Purdue professor's name, but tried to hide it from their defense team, and also misled the Carroll County prosecutor by telling him they didn't know the professor's name or where to find him. All of it proof the defense claims that investigators misled a judge to get a search warrant for Richard Allen's home. Now a judge must consider more than 150 pages of court documents and decide if the information in them, including the theory the girls were killed as part of a ritual sacrifice, supports that request.
It's this judge's responsibility to say, is the omitted information egregious enough, significant enough, relevant enough that it is likely that it would have changed that judicial officer's decision. And that's a high burden for the defense to make.
I do not think that the defense team will be taken off of the case. For one, there's 2 different law firms that are representing them. There's the defense team, which is Baldwin, and then there is Rozzi, and he works for a different law firm in a different town. So there's no way she's going to take both the defense team off of there. And I don't really think that she'll take either team off of there, because I don't think anybody has alleged that Baldwin or Rossi directly released any crime scene photos. I think that there was maybe like somebody in their office that apparently leaked them, but 1, they're going to do an investigation about it, and 2, without their direct knowledge, I think that the judge would just tell them that they need to be like more careful and prudent with keeping the information under wraps, and I mean possibly give them like a harsh like reprimand, but she's not going to take them off of the case. So it's just a check-in to see like where they're at with the case. Why would she check in and then take them off the case? It's just not really going to happen. Both of those defense lawyers are very, very good lawyers, and they're not going to be doing things to compromise their reputation or their case. And I don't know if you guys know this, but they're doing pretty well. So I don't see it happening, but that's just my opinion, and we'll have to see what happens in court. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great one. Bye.